All right, so this menu navigation stuff, I'm going to show you two ways to do it. I'm also going to do some variable controlled content. Basically, everything that we discussed in class here in a more kind of detailed, cleaner look, okay? And I set this thing up first, and this is what I suggest. If you're going to start going into some of the coding and some of the details that we are with this, make sure that you have it already mapped out and planned. See, so I have a start. I have this little area here, which is going to be most of what we're going to be talking about here. But then everything else that I need to know and want to have variables for, want the user to interact with, I've already gone ahead and created all that. I've laid it all out. And this is what I highly suggest that you do is goodness, just have it planned out. So that way, when we're doing the variables, when we're starting with the advanced actions, we already know everything, okay? So here's all my potential screens. I have them named, which I talked about that we should always do. If you look at all my buttons, I have them named. See, so that's the shaker. All of these options are also taken care of and already named. So that way, everything's designed, everything looks the way that I want. I just need it to function a certain way, and that's what we're going to work through now, okay? The first thing is going over the fluid app boxes of this. The only thing I just want to reiterate is you see that if I click on my fluid box structure here, is I don't just have, oh, that one should be vertical. Anyway, I just don't have vertical fluid boxes throughout, okay, stacked. I have this idea of putting fluid boxes within fluid boxes, and that's where I can start messing with kind of my padding and keeping everything how it looks and feels. So if you look at this one here, when I go to play it, you see my buttons and everything kind of stay as is, which is kind of what I want. A little choppy here. I don't know why it's taking so long. But you get the point, okay? Now, the first thing that I want to do, and this we'll call this one part one, I guess, is just go over the idea where we don't want this continue button to show up until each of these have been clicked on and visited. Now, there's two ways to do this. The first way is very simple, very storyliney, stuff that we've done before. And it all starts with states, right? So when you're doing something like this, what you want to do is, and again, with storyline, it's the same way. As much as you can, use the built-ins, right? So I have my rules button. I have it not named. Oh, look at me. A liar. Copy and paste, huh? So rules, and then I'm going to go ahead and say regs here. Regs, okay. So I have these two, and the first thing that I want to do is make sure that they are in some sort of state, right? So I'm going to go to the first one, go to state view, and you see that by default I have my normal, I have the rollover, and then I have down, which is fine. But I want a visited, and I think we even talked a little bit about selected, but I'm just going to say new, and I think visit is my only option here. So I'm going to keep it as visited and just say okay. And the only thing that I have to do, and you have a couple options, right? I'm just going to change the color of this, but if you wanted to add something in here, like maybe another shape or something like that, you're more than welcome to, but I'm just going to go ahead and change it to, yeah, I guess so, green, right? So go ahead. So that we have the visited state of green, okay? I'm going to exit. And then I'm going to come to regulations, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Just go to state view, make sure that I actually have a state of visited, and I don't need code now, right? So because it's built in, the moment that it's clicked on, and I'll show you here shortly, it's going to automatically go to that visited state without me having to put any type of action in or anything like that. So I'll go ahead and I think, was that the green? Yeah, okay. So I got that. I have my states now. And then what you definitely want to do is, because this first way is we're actually going to leave, right? So we're going to leave the screen and come back. So I want to make sure that this is, where is it? So retain state on slide revisit. So make sure you have that button selected and then have that checkbox there, retain state on slide revisit. That just means when they come back to this, if in fact it was clicked on, we'll have that state view apparent. So there we go. Now, unfortunately, we did this in Classic. What would be great is if we could do a conditional statement saying, if both of these are in the visited state, go ahead and show this continue button down here. Let me just make sure my continue button, oh man, I didn't name that either. First and foremost, I want to make sure that's hidden, right? So if I preview this as visible in output, but I want to make sure that red eye is there so it's not visible in output, okay? And just to show you here what's going on, so place line from the slide. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But there you can see, it's because there's what's on it right now, I think continue. Yeah, okay. But you saw it turn green. I didn't have to deal with any type of code or anything. It automatically turned green, which is good, and that's what we wanted to do. So now we have to figure out what in the heck. So the first thing I want to do is think about the logic of this. So step one is this needs to go to the rules slide, right? So if you see down here, I have a rules slide. Again, I didn't name it. Goodness gracious. So rules, and then I'm going to come back here and say regulations. So I have those two, so I know that that's where I want each of these to navigate to respectively, right? Thing about it is I can't do that if like I want to. So I'm going to come over here, and the idea is it's going to be on enter here, this action, right? And we can do that because when I click on this, I'm leaving this. And then of course you see that I have some back buttons here. So that means I'll be revisiting this. So I can do a bunch of things on this particular slide because that revisit is really going to allow me some freedoms to make this a little bit easier, right? But if I click on the on enter, I definitely want an advanced action, right? And I want that advanced action. I'm going to call it show next one. Show next one. Okay. And even if I did the conditional tab, so we know we have to do the conditional tab because that's what this if stuff is happening, right? But if I look at this, what's happening is if I say if the rules button and the regulations button are in the visited, go ahead and show that. In Captivate, you don't have that option, right? So if you look at this, it says if, and then the moment that I come down here and start typing, it doesn't give me the option of looking for anything with states. It only has a variable option or literal, but we know that's me kind of looking for things. So I can't just simply say this button. So what I have to do is create a variable, right? So this first button I'm calling rules, and this next one I'm calling regulations. So I'm just going to go ahead and create two variables called rules and regulations. I do that by going up to the top and clicking project and then variables. I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to call it rules with no value. And I'm going to add a new one and call it regs. So I have rules and regs there. And I didn't give them any value. I just left them open. So now what I can say is when I click on this, I not only want it to navigate to that respective slide, but I also want to update the variable. And one thing that I'm always going to say that you do and hope that you do is let's go ahead and since we're dealing with variables, always have some sort of instance on here to see if it's actually working and updating, okay? And you do that, I'm just going to make sure that we can see this. I got to make sure everything matches, right? So give me a second. We do that by doing the $sign. Remember that? And I'm going to make it really small just so I can get them both in here. So what do we have? 22. So I'll do like 12. So $, and then the name of it. The first one was, oh darn it, was it rules or rule? I'll just do that for now. $. And I know the other one was just regs. So you know in Storyline it's the, oh gosh, what is it? The % sign. And here in Captivate, as long as you have the $, surrounding the name of the variable, it's going to update and show you whatever that variable is. So let me just make sure I did that one correctly. Did I say rules? So rules and regs, everything is case sensitive, remember, so I have all lowercase here, so we're good to go. So now what I want to do is kind of set these two to a certain variable so I recognize whether they've been visited or not. So why not just say visited, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is click on this one. I'm going to go to do an advanced action, create a new one, and I'm going to call this rules. And I'll just leave, I'm going to say rules clicked. How about that? Rules. Okay. So what I want to do first is I need that variable to update. Okay, so I'm going to say assign, and then it's going to give me an option of, well, what variable do I want to assign? It's going to be rules. And I want to do with that literal, and I'm just going to say visited. See that? So the first thing is take that rules and say that it was visited, and then the next thing that I want to do is jump. And I want to jump to the slide rules. Okay? No big deal. Everything's fine. So I'm going to say save as action. And just to reiterate, I don't know if this is going to happen or not. This is a storyline issue, but why not be consistent? If I were to do it this way, where I'm saying jump to the slide, and then I'm saying assign the variable, there's a good chance, and I don't know how Captivate works, but I do know how Storyline works. There's a good chance that that variable will never get updated. Just because it's saying, hey, leave this slide and then do this. But it might not be able to do any other action on that slide if you've already left it. So it's always good practice to kind of make this navigation if you're leaving somewhere and you're waiting for something to update, kind of put that last. So first go ahead and assign it and then jump. And now, since we're in here, we've already planned it out. We already know that we're going to navigate the regulations one to the certain slide. We can stay in here, right? So that's rules clicked. And in the top right here, we can just duplicate. And I'm going to just change the name to regs clicked. And instead of assigning rules with visited, I'm going to go ahead and click on this and look for regs. There it is. Everything else stays the same. And I don't want to jump to slide 8 rules. I want to slide to 9 regulations. So that makes things a lot easier when you can duplicate, okay? So I'm going to update the action here and say okay. And then close it because I don't need to do anything else. Now I just need to make sure that the exact advanced action I want is assigned to the right button. So execute advanced action, that's rules, so that should be rules clicked. And then regs here, I'm going to say execute advanced action and regs clicked. Good. So rules, regs. Nice. Okay. One other thing I want to make sure that, okay, we're good to go. So now let's preview this and let's see what happens. Okay, so not much direction, but we get the point here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on rules. I jump to the rules slide. It tells me about, I got to be 21, all that stuff. I go back, you can see that it's visited. It has turned green, which we appreciate, but then you can also see up here it says visited. So we know that that variable updated. And then I'm going to click regulations. Off we go to the regulations. Then I go back and we see that's visited because yes, the variable is updated, but it's also green. So now we have a basis to kind of call that if situation on, right? So I'll close this. And now we can say if the rules variable up here and the regulations variable up here are both visited, then we want to go ahead and show our continue button, right? Which is regs continued, and that's being hidden, okay? And we do that, and this again makes it easy because we're leaving this screen. We're leaving this screen and navigating all the way the heck down here, okay? What we can do then is use this on enter. And it's fantastic when you have that on enter because it's the first thing that's going to be read. If you think about the way that you do web design and you put the JavaScript at the top or whatever, it's very hierarchical. So it reads what's at the top first. And the moment that we select this on enter, which is going to be an advanced action, it's going to put that at the very utmost of our code and do that first. And I'm going to call this show next one, like I was talking about before. I need to make a new one. I'll call it show next one. Okay. Don't have to do this, but I like to do these. Show next. And I want it to be conditional, right? Because it's not just saying, hey, do this. It's based on conditions. And the conditions, as we know, are if the variable rules, so I think it's all the way down here, is equal to, and we know that it needs to be literal because we're the ones that determined it, right? So we're the ones saying, hey, when you click on it, make it say visited. So that means it's literal. So we're saying if rules is equal to visited, and it's also case sensitive, and, see down here it says and? So and regs. So I'm going to click variable again. Is equal to visited. So if both of those are equal to visited, now what I want to do is show, oh boy, what did I call it? And of course I wouldn't have named the darn thing. Was it this one? I'm going to do that one for now. Save as action. Okay. Close. Of course I didn't name it, did I? Right. Yeah, I did name it. What the? I want to show reg. Oh, here it is. Regs continue. Okay. That's just the name of the button. So if you look at this, I'm saying when you click on this, it updates that to visited. Click on this, it updates that to visited. But because we're leaving when we click on either of those respectively and coming back to this, we get to say on enter frame, if rules is equal to visited and regs is equal to visited, go ahead and show that regs continue. So update action. Okay. Close. Again, let's say, so right now it's regs clicked. Make sure that it's show next one clicked. Okay. And here we go. Let's see what happens. I think I need to put an action on this just so we go to the next slide, which is fine. Yeah, okay. So here we go. Preview from the slide. So rules, off I go. I'm reading about my rules. I'm going to go back. Nothing's here. Regulations, reading about that. I go back. And when I go back, there you go. You can see that my continue button is now available for me to click and move on to some other stuff and things. Okay? So that's part one, and that's kind of that, what I'm calling variable controlled navigation if you're leaving the screen. Next up, it's going to be if you're just going to stay there on the screen. Okay? And we are done with this one.